Hello and welcome! I am Zio Agito, and I figured this is a new show, so I'll probably get some new viewers, so I'd start with a quick introduction. I do Toku reviews for the weekly superhero time block, side videos when I get some time, and Twitch streams on the weekend. I'm someone who's been watching these shows week to week since Maji Ranger back in 2004 and decided to dip my toes into the content creation scene back about 2 years ago. But since this is the first episode in a show, I'll let my longtime viewers know that the wacky shenanigans won't happen with this review. We're going strictly vanilla. Sometimes you gotta ease people in to the rabbit hole of how crazy some of these reviews can get from time to time. Now, the format for these reviews typically go in a set order. I usually do some sort of opening bit, which once again, we're doing vanilla, so no. Then the intro, followed by a recap. Then there's the optional Let's Talk forms, followed by rating time. Then episode thoughts and speculations. So with that, let's go ahead and get started because a lot goes on with this series starting episode of Kamen Rider Gotchard. Mysterious old guy who totally hasn't been spoiled by info dumps gets sidetracked by Redacted and her two older yet younger sisters, who completely know how to throw hands. What they're after is a lighter brick that if you throw hard enough could choose between life or death. But he's not going to use it that way. He's got monsters to summon, managing to get away. Clearly, this is some sort of pocket dimension, as it's got a ton of beakers floating around dangling from somewhere. When old buddy decides to send out two cards to find one who could work that brick the right way. Meet Hotaro Ichinose, high school student who can't cook worth of anything at his mom's restaurant. But because this is a Reiwa Rider show, we instantly get presented with daddy issues. Ichinose is your typical modern kid who has no idea what his career goals are. But no matter, we got a second main character to introduce, and girl whose acting reflects that of a plank, Rine Kudo. She's your strict know-it-all, but has her own family issues. But to throw balance to Hotaro's inability to seem to know much on a historical context, Rine knows it all, putting that kid in his place, which he's not about. But since this is the first episode, we gotta introduce yet another new character, outside of the teacher that I failed to mention, but did show, and this guy who is Ichinose's friend at school. Currently following rumors of a monster. But enough about that, Rine shows up and Ichinose's got words for her. Not like she'll get a chance to hear him because she's got a wall to talk to. And use magic to enter some sort of secret room. You know, for as attentive as she seems to come off from time to time, she is also very blind to what is directly behind her. Since Ichinose sees all of this, but can't make it up. Conveniently though, here comes the plot as Random Toy scares him into trying to understand. As it turns out, sharing his food was all the evidence Hopper 1 needed to determine that Ichinose is that guy. Summoning up just for Rine to henshin and use Leaf Blade. But you know Steamliner is part Steel type. That's never gonna... Oh. No matter though, Steamliner still gets his way and snatches up Hotaro to bring him to Beaker World, where he meets old guy who gives him that brick, just in time for YouTube censoring and her sisters to show on up, throwing hands effectively once again, but now it's time to make sure that Hotaro knows what he is.
You're a wizard.
No? Well, kinda. He's a Kamen Rider. As old guy gets melted and sealed, the cards all get freed up. So Clotho, the oldest yet middle sister, goes on out, absorbing Camantis and becoming this episode's Monster of the Week. Showing up Ichinose at every turn, even with the Rine assist. But it's time now for that first episode henshin, which I'm sure is gonna be... Well then, that's a thing that happened. Turning into reused, recolored assets and getting his ass beat. I think he needs a do-over. There we go. Gotchard is here. So powerful, even the camera quality dips. But once again, First episode, so we gotta show more Rine assists and just how time-consuming setting up that gun would be. But also, pocket dimension beatdowns and end things with a dramatic, and probably won't be this flashy for a while again, Rider Kick. Absorbing the commands and having his friend show up just to get MIB'd, and that memory is wiped. Because Ichinose's teacher is another alchemist who alludes that the last time shit like this happened was 120 years ago. With this episode of Gotchard, we get our titular hero in his base form. So with that, let's talk forms. The goggles on the head really were an interesting concept when the prospect was brought up during the initial reveal. But I actually am disappointed that the top of the helmet only really comes down in CG and is not a practical effect like Kamen Rider Maha in Drive. The furnace on the lower chest, with the beaker essentially taking the form of Steamliner's chimney, is some great motif to showcase. If this was done during a nighttime scene, it would have looked much better and much more to the Agito nature that the production staff was calling this show based off on the suit. But that is more with the inline of the sparkle aspect of the blue reflective metal on the suit that is just okay. Orange and blue are complementary colors in terms of appearance. It's okay, but I would say that out of the Reiwa suits we've gotten so far, it's my least liked out of all the main riders. The Gotchard driver in itself is probably interesting, but at the same time, it's just a brick. I am not so eager to purchase it right away like I did the Desire driver, but I will probably end up getting it eventually, just not currently. I've got CSMs to buy. Rating time! As far as introductory episodes, this one's pacing was all over the place, as to be expected. But there's certain time instances that just don't seem to make sense. The show has two co-leads with Houtaro and Rine. While Rine's acting looked to be stiff as a board, Ichinose just seems pretty bland for a lead and didn't give me anything worth clutching onto for a lead role. What did outshine them is the villains with the three Dark Sisters, who I did not expect to be as raw in their fighting as what we actually got. Now, when it comes to rating scales, if you're new here, I go through letter grades of F being the lowest and S being the highest, but there's been times in which those have been surpassed. But as far as this episode is concerned, this is gonna be getting a C! As is common with a lot of first episodes, they set up a bit of lore in regards to what's going on with the world. The old guy that we see in the beginning is actually Rine's father, who left in order to develop the Gotcha driver. It appears that there are multiple pocket dimensions that these alchemists are capable of accessing, as the one we see in the start appears to be one of them, while the three sisters find their way through his dimension and the main dimension through theirs. The issue I have is the time dilation, since his run from the sisters and sending the chemis out to find Houtaro probably happened in the span of a few hours, which is remarkably fast. While conveniently, the sisters don't show up until he's given him the driver. This does lead to a very Kuga-esque scene of Ichinose envisioning what he needs to do with the driver. But that could have also been an allusion to the last person who fused with chemis, which they stated happened 120 years ago. Now, if you've seen another show that's heavily reliant on alchemy, namely Full Metal Alchemist, and go by the photo early in the episode, it's easy to speculate that this person is our Hohenheim, and thus, potentially, Ichinose's father. Luckily, his mom's still alive, for right now. There's the quick setups for the school, in which we meet his teacher, who essentially has two personas depending on the lecture, as he gets that slick black alchemist fit going on as well. But we'll come to see more of that as time progresses. Rine and Houtaro are both the weakest part of this episode for me, and I don't know if it's just Rine's actress or the direction that they told her to go in, but she felt really stiff. Even in scenes where she had to show some emotion or concern for what was going on during the fights. While Houtaro is definitely not the kind of protagonist I usually find myself backing in a fight, it'll remain to be seen as we progress just how these two develop, not just as characters but also as actors. since this is one of the rare times that we get such a young lead cast for a Kamen Rider show. This episode, in a way, gives me vibes of Den-O with how Hotaru acts, with the obvious mix of Fourze and Wizard, which Den-O I found to be alright, and I found Fourze to be mid, and Wizard to be completely forgettable. As I mentioned before, the highlights were the three sisters. Atropos is the one I can't show clips because YouTube would instantly turn this into a YouTube Kids video, and I ain't trying to do all that. But her acting was already more menacing than I was expecting, while Clotho's Rex face, meanwhile Laxie's is a psycho, and I'm all about it. The Chemis have this very Pokemon-esque style to them, which can probably get annoying after a while, but we'll see how they handle their Monster of the Week aspect, and just how they bond with the randos who have some malice in their hearts. Whew, well, look, that was a lot to unpack for a first episode, and I know I obviously missed some other stuff. So I'm willing to keep the discussion going in the comments below, as well as on Friday night's Tokutonic Shift. So as usual, next week, we get to see how the pacing for the show will actually be like as they try to cram a lot in these first episodes. So with that being said, what did you think about the premiere of Kamen Rider Gotchard? What do you think about the characters, Gotchard's movesets, the establishment of lores, and how does this episode rank for you? Anyway, that's it for me. I'll see you all next week as we continue another year of Rider. Until then, bye.